All right, so we had very good news yesterday. It came out that Grayscale won their lawsuit with the SEC. Basically, they wanted to convert their what is now or what was before a futures ETF into a spot Bitcoin ETF. This is extremely bullish for Bitcoin. Bitcoin itself was up pretty nicely on the day. GBTC was up 16%. You look at the crypto miners were up even more. This is very, very, very good news. And a Bitcoin ETF, a spot ETF, is inevitable. I mean, number one, because you look at Canada, you look at most European countries, I mean, most countries in general, that is the direction that they are going. So, I mean, it makes no sense that, most of Europe has it, Canada has it, but the U.S. doesn't. It doesn't make any sense, right? So again, the trend is very clear. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and it's looking like that when is now. Now, we don't know exactly when it's going to start trading as a spot ETF. We really don't know, but it's only a matter of time. And not only that, it's only a matter of time until BlackRock gets theirs approved, Invesco gets theirs approved, Kathy Wood, they'll get one approved, and the list goes on and on. There'll probably be like 10 or 20 of them. And I've said for the longest time that, I think that will add 50 billion minimum, possibly even in the hundreds of billions of dollars of inflows just within the first year, right? Let alone 10 years down the road. I think it could be in the trillions, right? So that's something that is going to be massively, massively bullish, right? I mean, $100 billion flowing into Bitcoin, that's what, 15-20% upside right there. So I think that gets us to, that adds what, another $10,000-$15,000 onto it right now. That gets us that probably gets us fairly close to the all-time highs. Now again, not just because of that, also because when you're in a bull run, that's when that FOMO starts to kick in, and that's when the more average people that aren't hardcore crypto guys, that's when they start to get in, right? So I think that not only that, it will also be combined with a possible Fed cutting cycle, which will also coincide with, a possible bull run and another bull run in stocks, which will help, which again, even though that there's really no reason for them to be correlated, the market typically views them as at least somewhat correlated. So again, all of the stars are looking like they very well could align for Bitcoin. Now, on the flip side, you've also seen a year to where Bitcoin has had very little volatility, record low volatility, at least for Bitcoin, right? So I think the days of the volatility that we've seen in the past may very well be over. And that's another thing that we have to realize too as Bitcoiners is, as the market cap goes up, I think the volatility will go down, because once you start to get the, people investing a percentage of their 401k and their pension and those kind of things, a lot of that money is fixed, right? Meaning they're not going to be pulling it out for 10, 20, 30 years, et cetera, no matter what happens, right? So I think over time it will become less volatile. But also on the flip side, if there's a fixed amount of people buying, well, the availability of new Bitcoin is getting cut in half every 4 years. This is another thing people don't seem to realize is if the demand just stays the same for Bitcoin, it's still going to go up a lot over the long run, because the availability of new Bitcoin is going down very, very quickly. And another thing people need to keep in mind too is that a lot of the people that have a lot of Bitcoin, they're not going to be selling, right? There's a lot of people that have made millions, tens of millions of dollars, and they are not going to be selling, right? This is the thing that people don't realize is that compared to, bond investors, stock investors, you name it, Bitcoin investors are some of the most hardcore, laser eyes, hodl, no matter what kind of investors that you can imagine, right? If you look at the last bear market, something like 80 or 85% of people who hold Bitcoin did not sell a single sat, right? Me included. I didn't even think about selling, right? So that's something that people really need to keep in mind is everything is aligning in my mind, right? What is my prediction? I think we're going to see volatility, right? We're certainly going to see volatility. We're going to see right when you think it's right ready to go to the moon, then we'll probably see a downturn again. But the one thing that I think, my prediction would be, I think we go a little bit higher by the end of the year. If the spot ETFs get approved right away, I think we go quite a bit higher. But that all depends, right? My prediction is we see a new all-time high within the next year, right? Probably shortly after the halving, and then, or maybe possibly within 6 months of the halving at the absolute latest, we'll see a new all-time high, right? So at some point in 2024, that's my prediction, is when we see a new all-time high, and then we go into the hundreds of thousands in 2025, right? Where does it peak out? Nobody knows. My guess is maybe 200, maybe 300,000, right? Nobody knows really. It seems like the high is right around 10x what the previous low was. So we're talking whatever, 15, 16,000 US. So that would imply maybe 150,000 US, which is about 200,000 Canadian. Honestly, that seems like a pretty good starting spot. I think it could even go higher though, assuming that we get all the spot ETFs approved. We're in a cutting cycle, which again, I don't think that matters that much necessarily, but it certainly will help. The economy is still doing okay. That's one thing that I think could potentially hurt it, is that if we get a really bad recession. But over the long run, again, I don't think anything is stopping Bitcoin. I really don't. And the simple reason being is that if you look at the reasons that people traditionally give to be bearish, it's the people that have no idea what they're talking about. Or if you look at the professionals, or the so-called professionals, their reasoning is typically because they're stuck in this mindset of thinking that because you can't value it in a similar way that you can value a bond or a stock, that it must be worthless, right? And that couldn't be anything further from the truth, because Bitcoin has many things that you cannot get anywhere else, right? You cannot transfer value without being censored, right? A lot of people would say, oh, what about Ethereum? What about XRP? Again, those are not censorship. Ethereum has rolled back their chain before, right? You can't do it with the traditional money system, right? You certainly can't do it with your stocks and your bonds. You can't do it with, you can kind of do it with gold, but you're not taking it across a border. You're not sending it across the world. And if you are, it's going to cost you a lot of money to do, right? So again, Bitcoin is an asset in and of itself that cannot do things that other things cannot do. It cannot be censored. It cannot be devalued. Just those things in and of itself, that's worth trillions of dollars right there, right? And then it comes to the fact that, again, it's an inflation hedge. It's a way to save and store your value. That's probably worth tens of trillions when you account for all that stuff, right? So again, that's just my thoughts. I don't see any way that you don't interpret this as being bullish. And like I said, I think everybody, it seems like at this point, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? It's just a matter of when. And I think that one of the big things that's going to come in here is that as much as the regulators don't want to approve it, they see a massive money-making opportunity. And the BlackRocks of the world also see a massive money-making opportunity, right? So again, it is inevitable, right? It is inevitable. And personally, I'm not a big fan of buying the ETFs. I would possibly trade the ETFs, but I would never buy and hold the ETFs because it's not the real thing, and it kind of defeats the purpose. Because, like I said, one of the main purposes is can't be censored, right? Your stock portfolio, if the government wants to confiscate it, they could, right? If BlackRock wants to, they could, right? So that's my thoughts on that. Like I said, I would possibly trade it. I would never hold it over the long run, maybe a small amount, possibly, but the vast majority of your Bitcoin should be on a hardware wallet, right? So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.